Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for Claudia Chender's nomination meeting. My name is Juanita Peters, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a playwright and local filmmaker and all-around Dartmouth girl. And I am so pleased to be here tonight with you this evening. I want to first thank Jesse and the EPC team for organizing tonight. And first, I want to let you know that this evening is going to be just a little different. Normally, we'd have you all in a room with us together, and we'd probably be having a few snacks and a few drinks, but hopefully you set yourself up at home with those things, right? Grab yourself a comfy chair and a nice cup of coffee or anything else you'd like to have, and stick around for this. We've crafted the evening to allow you to get a good understanding of Claudia's position and background, and let you know how you can support her, and keep it all under an hour. Parts have been filmed and parts will be live. In the chat option, if you just take a look, we've pinned some important links to make sure that you check those out. We'll be referring to those throughout the night. You'll also see QR codes. They're going to pop up on your screen and from time to time. So if you have a smartphone, just take your smartphone and put it over that QR code, and you'll see it'll point directly to the screen. It should open the link directly to your phone. So if you want to try that out, please go ahead. And if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat, and we'll try to address as many as we can tonight. We may not get to them all, but please just put them up there. And for the ones that we don't get to tonight, Claudia will answer through email later on, okay? So keep the questions coming. Now that the housekeeping's out of the way, let's go to the first question from Kai. Kai Hollett, she has a question about the environment.
Hi, my name is Kai Hollett, and I'm a student at Dartmouth High School. As a young person, I have a great interest in how we're going to solve the climate change crisis. So my question is, how would the NDP fight climate change while at the same time addressing inequalities faced by marginalized communities in Nova Scotia? Thank you.
Thanks, Kai. It's awesome to have Kai's involvement, and welcome everybody, and thank you, Juanita, so much for hosting tonight. This is a different format, and I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to take advantage of connecting, even though we can't be together tonight. And I'm excited to answer a few questions from you. Kai is one person who's submitted questions. We have another one, and as Juanita said, feel free to keep them coming in the chat. This question is extremely important. It's important in the medium term and in the long term. Last year, as some folks may know, we had legislation called EGSPA on the books, the Environmental Goals and Sustainable Prosperity Act. This is one of the most amazing pieces of legislation that's been passed by the Nova Scotia legislature. It was an all-party bill, actually introduced by the Progressive Conservatives, that really cemented a commitment to environmental action in Nova Scotia. This last year, that bill was finally updated, way past the deadline, and the new bill that was introduced in its place, the Sustainable Development Goals Act, essentially stripped the bill of its meaning. It didn't have targets. It still doesn't have targets. They're coming in regulation, and it's been really disappointing. So I know your question was about the climate emergency and equity. But to the climate emergency piece, I want to say that the silver lining when we were talking about that was the number of people that came to law amendments and talked to us about that bill, and they were mostly high school students and environmental activists, and they came and they were able to tell the legislators in this province in crystal clear terms why the climate emergency mattered and how the direct impact that it was going to have on their life. And I think that what I'm hearing from you is an echo of what I heard that day, Kai. And I think that is totally connected to questions of equity, because as we address the climate emergency, we know that we have to do it in ways that don't further exacerbate inequality, that don't further exacerbate the challenges that we have that are disproportionately borne, we know, by racialized communities. And so we, the NDP, have had an environmental racism bill on the books for years now, where we look to avoid things like what happened in Africville, which Juanita, of course, is very familiar with. what's happening in Shelburne still, what the legacy of Pictou and Northern Pulp. And so we are very keenly aware that we need to work on that, and we have been working on it. And I think we've been the party in the legislature that has been crystal clear on these issues. And so against that context, I want to say that we have a new premier who has committed himself to addressing the climate emergency and to making equity a cornerstone of his platform. And we're pleased to hear that. But I also want people to remember that along with the EGSPA situation that I discussed, this is a government that in my 4 years called street checks a valuable policing tool. This is a government that has seen so much environmental racism on their watch. The closure of Northern Pulp, I have to say, was a bright spot. We were glad to see that happen, but we know that that company is trying to reopen, and we know how precarious the kind of the peace and the justice that the Pictou Landing First Nations have achieved there is. And so we will be watching to see what actually happens. And the early returns are mixed, I have to say. We've seen some commitment, and that's been good. But we've seen spending out of the Green Fund finally, after raising the alarm about the millions that have gone unspent, even in this time of COVID. But that spending was for electric vehicle rebates. Now we're glad to see that, but don't we also want to see electrification of our transit? Don't we also want to see electrification of the different parts of our society and infrastructure that are actually used by the more marginalized folks in our society, that are used by everyone? Most people who are going to get that rebate on a vehicle can probably afford the vehicle. That doesn't mean we don't want to further incentivize it. We do. But these are the ways in which we have to pay attention to the details in which these environmental and other policies are rolled out. And so to your original question, what are we going to do about it? We're going to hold this government to account. And it's going to be a really interesting situation. We've had a commitment to move away from coal ASAP. We've had a commitment to equity. And we've had a commitment to really rethinking the justice system. Those are thorny issues, and they're ones on which this government does not have a good track record. And so we really look forward to watching and to being clear about the ways in which they need to step up.
Well, thank you, Claudia. And I'm very excited about the first thing you said there, which was the involvement that a lot of students are having on this issue. Students today are very tuned in to environment and how it affects us short and long term. And they are watching out for their futures and ours too. So it's very encouraging. Now we're going to move on to our next question. It's from Karen on housing, something that's on the top of most Nova Scotians' mind, especially here in Dartmouth. Claudia?
Hi, my name's Karen Foster and I live in Dartmouth. My question for Claudia is about the housing market in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia has seen an influx of interprovincial migrants, even though interprovincial migration is down across the rest of the country. And this has exacerbated problems in our housing market, such as a lack of affordable housing, and it has also contributed to a dramatic rise in the price of houses for sale and also rent prices. At the same time, the province has launched a media campaign to encourage people from other parts of the country to move to Nova Scotia to take advantage of remote work opportunities. So there's already a problem with the housing market. People who live here already are having a really hard time finding decent, affordable places to live. We have the problem of out-of-province buyers who are jacking up prices and buying places sight unseen. And then we also have the province encouraging new people to move here. Immigration's great. Population growth is good for our economy. It's good for societies in many ways, but it also poses some challenges. And our housing market is clearly bursting at the seams. I'm wondering what the provincial government can and should do to address housing problems in Nova Scotia across rural and urban communities, and to ensure that everybody, regardless of income level, social supports, good and bad credit, can find a decent, affordable place to live. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. I should say that, you know, Karen's a sort of stealth questioner here, having a PhD as she does, and being a professor of sociology and social anthropology. But she raises an absolutely pivotal and emergent question in Dartmouth and across the province, actually. And it's one that I have to say I get on the doorstep all the time. And people aren't just asking me about housing when I go through one of the many Metro Regional Housing Association buildings in Dartmouth South. They're asking about it in every residential neighborhood, because I think we are beyond the point where we can pretend in any capacity that we're not in a housing crisis. And so your question of what the provincial government can and should do, both rural and urban, is a massive one. And so I will attempt to give you a few of the answers of what my colleagues and I have been working on. But I do also want to thank you for highlighting the rural issue, because particularly when I talk to rural councillors, they remind me that this issue is more invisible often in many rural areas, but it's no less real. We have a housing crisis. And so the first answer to what the provincial government should do, honestly, is the provincial government needs to act. And this is something we've been saying for years. And I think really it comes down to, you know, what do we believe people are entitled to? And we believe that people are entitled to a roof over their heads. You shouldn't have to earn the ability to have a dry, safe place to sleep. And so, you know, here in Dartmouth South, I think what we've seen is the evaporation of affordable rentals. We've seen a massive expansion in the wait lists of Metro Regional Housing units. So many people may know that income assistance is insufficient at the best of times. But the only truly affordable housing is public housing, and the wait lists are often 3 years long. So that's not really an option for anyone. And the super overheated housing market, which we've really seen in Dartmouth South, particularly in the last year, has caused a further erosion of affordable rental options because people are selling houses. So there's an eviction ban, there's a rent cap, but none of that matters if you sell your home. And that's happening all over the place. And so in terms of, you know, what can the provincial government do? One of our, you know, our immediate focuses in the early days of the pandemic were on an eviction ban and also on rent control. And I have to say that my own view is that neither of those are a solution, but it sort of stops the bleeding. So, you know, we are losing all of these rental units. We already have a situation where we don't really have truly affordable housing. But those two acts of an eviction ban and an extended period of rent control, because right now it's temporary and tied to the state of emergency, can help folks retain what affordable housing they have. And I have to say, as an MLA in my constituency office, every day we have people in who are in situations where they're getting evicted anyway, or their rent is going up anyway. So it's a massive challenge. But like I say, I don't think that's a full solution. And so the solution is we need truly affordable housing. And so that can be investment in non-market housing. So here in Dartmouth, we have the Dartmouth Nonprofit Housing. They have a housing stock of fully affordable non-market rental. So their rental isn't tied to the ridiculousness of the housing market, particularly right now, which I have to say feels like a bubble, but we'll see what happens. They truly start to peg rent to income. And we need much, much more of that. And we are seeing some action mostly through the federal government. So we're seeing investment in co-ops. We saw a big one on the Halifax side recently. We saw some rapid housing money come down from the feds. We are not seeing that money from the province. What we've seen from the province mostly are rent supplements, which in my opinion actually exacerbate the problem because you're giving money to a private landlord. And so when those first started being sort of given out like candy a couple years ago, what we said was, oh, so you make a crappy $600 apartment into a crappy $900 apartment. You're not creating housing. And right now, with the market being what it is, there's no incentive for a landlord to take a rent supplement. They don't need to. They'd rather rent the apartment for more to someone else. There's an editorial in today's Chronicle Herald by Stella Lord dealing with this issue. I recommend people check it out. If anybody industrious wants to put the link in the chat, by all means. We should consider investment in non-market housing. We should consider building new public housing. I mean, government has been pretty clear that they want to be out of the business of housing. But the reality is, we can leverage access to credit and building and all kinds of other things as the massive entity that we are as a provincial government that other folks can't. But we can also do a lot more creative things. We can be creative in our taxation. So we've seen other areas that have these challenges start to have increased taxation on speculation, on vacant properties, on different kinds of buyers, all that kind of thing. I mean, you reference for buyers from away in particular in your question, Karen, and I think that's really tricky. I think we do want to increase the population in Nova Scotia. I think we want a broader tax base. I think we want more people here. I think we have a lot of space, but we want to do that in a way that's planned and in a way that keeps our communities intact and makes them more vibrant. And so without that planning, particularly on the housing front, we're not doing that. And so it's a big challenge. I think inclusionary zoning is a really interesting opportunity. So we could allow municipalities to introduce mandatory inclusionary zoning so that would require the building of affordable housing. And I also think, one thing that we started talking about years ago was Airbnb. And so, the opinion is split, particularly among my colleagues in the legislature who come from all around the province on Airbnb. For some communities that don't have a hotel, that are never going to have a hotel, Airbnb's been a real boon because it brings people into the community, and I see that. But for lots of other communities, including Dartmouth, and including a lot of other sort of more traditional tourist sites around the province, it's been a blight, because it has robbed our communities of any kind of long-term, stable, affordable housing. There was an opportunity when the Tourism Accommodation Act was passed last year and updated to deal with that. There are new regulations around Airbnbs, but it's totally toothless. So they have to register, but there's no enforcement. And in fact, recently when I went to find out if a building was registered under the Tourist Accommodation Act, I was told by Service Nova Scotia, and this was confirmed by the minister, that information is private. So a hotel operator is entitled to privacy about whether or not they have registered. So not only is there not enforcement, it's impossible to find out. And so that's another thing that we need to continue to work on, because as I said, in our community in Dartmouth, it's a huge issue, but it's also an issue in Digby Neck. It's also an issue in Ingonish. It's also an issue in Lunenburg. It's not just here. And so, we have a long way to go. It's a super complex issue, and there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of, this is one of those interjurisdictional pieces. But I think the way I started this question is the way I want to end it, which is it depends what you think housing is. And I think of housing as a right. I think housing is a human right. I think I can't imagine an argument that someone could give me that X person doesn't actually deserve a roof over their heads or a place to live. And so, we've seen folks like mutual aid building shelters, that allow people in. We've seen the folks at places like Out of the Cold, Caitlin's Place, other shelters and transition houses that have sprung up out of just need and hard work and dedication. And that's amazing, and it's incredible dedication, and it's work that those folks should not have to do unsupported, but they do because the provincial government has done so little. It's an issue in people coming out of corrections. It's an issue for folks on the list for housing. We could talk about this all night, but the provincial government needs to act. They need to take it seriously. There's an Affordable Housing Commission that apparently is going to report back on some of the things that they've found as they've looked at this issue. I'm cautiously hopeful. There's been a real opening of submissions to that body, but again, they're going to need some real fire, because this is going to take real action, and an action we haven't seen from the provincial government before.
Thank you so much for that question, Karen, and thank you so much, Claudia, for that answer. It's a very tough job and a tough situation, and it's going to take some very creative people to help us solve some of these issues. So now comes the best part of the evening, of course. Claudia is an incredible candidate, as we all know, and she's proven herself to be an outstanding MLA and advocate for Dartmouth South. But we all know that Dartmouth South is a swing riding. So the next election is going to take all hands on deck to make sure that we keep Claudia in office. And I'm now going to hand it over to our fundraising team to talk to you a little bit more about how you can support Dartmouth South by supporting Claudia.
Wait, the button.
Shall we start again?
Start again. Okay. Hello there. We are the fundraising committee for Claudia Chender's re-election campaign. I'm Wendy Lill.
I'm Emma Norton.
And I'm Kathy Chapman. Before we say anything else, we want to thank everybody for their generosity and support over the years. Wendy and I have worked together on several campaigns, and we're thrilled this time round to have Emma Norton join us on the fundraising team.
I have the honor of representing this community for many years in Ottawa, and there are lots of people here tonight who were with me fundraising, canvassing, and just helping out with representing the community.
And I had the honor and great adventure of running federally in 2019. I was amazed by the generosity and hard work of all the folks who pitched in.
In 2017, I was knee-deep in the campaign, and with the help of everybody who volunteered and supported, we were able to get our incredible candidate, Claudia Chender, elected to the legislature on behalf of Dartmouth South.
Well, time has come to do it again, and we're getting ready for Claudia's re-election campaign.
This 30-day marathon is made up of equal parts endurance, hard work, and cooperation.
And of course, the money that it needs to pull it all together.
So this is the fundraising pitch, so you all know what's coming, right? We're going to ask you to make a donation. So if you're ready to make a pledge tonight, you can let us know in the chat. And if you're ready to make a donation tonight, the host will let you know how to do that after our presentation.
Whether you want to wait until the writ is dropped, or if sooner, you can use the old-fashioned method, like I like to, write a check. Just let us know in chat, and one of us will follow up with you directly.
So we're going to take a quick look at how your donations would be used to support Claudia's campaign.
The main part of any campaign, as you know, is canvassing, and we need buttons for canvassers to wear and to give out to all our supporters.
How much will these buttons cost, Wendy?
A $50 donation will pay for all of those buttons.
Wow, that's great. And then there are signs.
Just ignore that.
These wonderful orange signs will be popping up like poppies on lawns throughout our community during the campaign.
And how much will those signs cost?
Well, $75 would pay for about a dozen of these signs.
Okay, great. Once the writ is dropped, we'll need a campaign headquarters. We're not sure what our needs will be this time round because it's strange times, but we'll definitely need a location for people to work out of. Maybe you could consider a $500 donation to cover the cost of a rent for our office for 1 week.
We can't forget about the technology that makes it happen. We're gonna need a phone, or several phones, internet connection, computers. How about a $200 donation towards these things?
We want to make sure that Claudia is top of mind with everyone when they're traveling to work and school. You could help pay for the price of a billboard. $125 will cover 1/4 of the cost of that billboard for 1 week.
Throughout the campaign, Claudia and the team will be reaching thousands of people in our community and talking about the NDP vision for a better, more equitable future. we'll need printed handouts and brochures for that. Your donation could pay for the design and the printing of these brochures and handouts.
So those are some of the costs, some of the places where your much appreciated donations will go. We hope you're as excited as we are to get the word out about our wonderful candidate, Claudia Chender, and that you'll help us to do that by making a financial donation to the campaign. You can make a pledge or donate right now by using chat, and our host will have more information about how you can support the campaign.
So that's it.
Thank you very much, and help us get Claudia re-elected.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Quick.
That's great. And I see in the chat that David Hewlin has just pledged $200. That'll buy about 40 signs. That's really great. Thanks so much, David. And here's $50 from Sam Starr. Thank you, Sam. And I'm seeing another 3, 4, 5 pledges of $50. That's really great. Let's see. All right. And there's one from Marilyn Moore, $500. Oh my gosh. And $400 from longtime supporter Terry O'Driscoll. I think that'll pay for a billboard maybe. And just remember the fundraising committee will be following up with everyone who's made a pledge. So thank you so much for your support. So just a reminder that you can pledge to donate when the writ drops in the comments. Alternately, you can donate today by clicking on the pinned link or using your cell phone to connect through the QR code as they come up on the screen. And if you're still having trouble, you can reach out to a member of the EDA or email us at ndpdartmouth@gmail.com. And there's a $100 pledge from Mary Vingo. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. And there are a few other ways that you can help out leading up to and during the campaign, of course. Volunteering. We always need lots of volunteers. So if you're out there, you've got a few minutes to spend. Listen, we've got all kinds of things that you can do. So please be ready to get the call, okay? Come on out and do some canvassing or from the comfort of your own home. You can be part of the call hub to call Nova Scotians. The party office is holding bi-weekly training sessions on Cal Hub. Is it Cal Hub or Cal Hub?
Call Hub.
Call Hub in support.
Where we call from our computers. We
I
don't
love
have
it.
phone banks anymore.
I love that.
We just turn on our computer.
You can
and
wear
call
anything you
everybody.
want. Have a little snack while you're doing it. That's how we do it now, the COVID way.
That's right.
It'll be a fun 2-hour training block. It's free and it really helps us collect the data that we need to win. And if you'd like to volunteer, sign up via the link and reach out to us for more information. So moving on to the real business of the meeting. We have a wonderful constituent by the name of Rebecca Rose here to officially nominate Claudia.
Hi there, my name is Rebecca Rose and I am a resident of Dartmouth South, where I live with my girlfriend and our cat, and where it's currently beautiful and sunny out. And I nominate Claudia Chender to be the NDP candidate for Dartmouth South. As a young-ish woman, as a feminist, and as someone with leftist politics, I don't often or always feel represented by our elected bodies. That's why it's been so exciting for me to live in Dartmouth South for the last 1.5 years and be represented by Claudia in the legislature. So since being elected, Claudia has been clear and persistent on issues that matter most to me. During the pandemic, Claudia and the NDP caucus have reframed the debate to center women and the disproportionate impact that the pandemic has had on us, and to talk about how the economy cannot restart without childcare being prioritized and properly funded. She has brought attention to the fact that childcare is not, quote, organic, as the Liberals claimed, And she can speak from experience because she has 3 young children and is in a caucus where the vast majority are women who also have young or school-aged children. Claudia and the NDP have also put a feminist lens on many issues, but what stands out to me is when she and the NDP joined the families and the vast majority of Nova Scotians in calling for a public inquiry into the shooting in April in Portapique and surrounding areas, and called for that inquiry to include a look into how gendered violence and domestic violence played into that shooting. Before the legislature was shut down due to the pandemic, more on that later, I was proud to appear before the Law Amendments Committee in the legislature to speak in favor of Claudia's private members' bill to create safe zones or bubbles around abortion clinics to prevent people accessing abortions from being harassed by anti-abortion and anti-choice protesters. In the legislature, this bill created an all too rare opportunity for women legislators from all parties to be front and center and to share their truths. Claudia's elegant and personal motivation of the bill brought me and many others to tears. Claudia also uses her platform for good to speak out against racism and anti-Semitism and all forms of hate, both in the legislature and on social media in the community, especially on Twitter, where she's quite prolific. She has made clear that there is no place for racism in Dartmouth when local families have been the target of racist threats. She has taken a knee with Nova Scotians in the wake of the George Floyd killing by police. And she and Dartmouth North MLA Susan LeBlanc have put forward concrete steps, and this is what makes her different from a lot of other politicians who just talk the talk, to undo systemic racism in this province, including apologizing for street checks and implementing all of the recommendations of the Wortley Report. Finally, throughout the pandemic, as the Liberal government has tried to shut down democracy at every chance they got, Claudia has been there every time to advocate for the safe return to committees and the legislature, so that MLAs can do their jobs and so that we, the people, can be represented in what is supposed to be our house. So thank you, Claudia, and I look forward to supporting you in the next election.
And that is the nomination that we were looking for. Thank you so much, Rebecca. That was just beautiful. Claudia, you're off to the races.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I am really moved. Rebecca has written this amazing book, Before the Parade, A History of Halifax's Gay, Lesbian, and Bisexual Communities. I want to make sure I get the title right. That's why I'm reading. But I'm really, really moved by the nomination, and I want to say that I am so honored to be nominated again to run as your MLA, because this job is really about amplifying the amazing voices in our community, and Rebecca is one of those amazing voices. Juanita is one of those amazing voices. So many people, when you run for office, all these incredible people show up and help you. You can't see Jesse here behind the soundboard and the team that's helping tonight, but it really is genuinely humbling. And I love Dartmouth. I love this community. As I give this speech, I remember 4 years ago when I was nominated, seeing Juanita's face in the crowd, and it really is humbling. But I love this job. And I love it because I love this community so much. And I think not only do I take seriously the role of advocating for the community and for the residents of our community, but I genuinely think that Dartmouth South is one of, if not the, I usually say the best riding in Nova Scotia. And I really think that we have so much special happening here. And so not only, do I take seriously my job to help where there are problems, and of course there are problems, but I also think we can be a model. I really think we can be a model for the rest of the province. And when you look at how generous and kind and innovative actually our community is, I think it's worth amplifying, and that's a lot of the work I do. And so I just want to talk a minute about what I love about this community. I think, especially over the last year, we have seen incredible generosity. We've seen it throughout our nonprofit sector, throughout the small businesses across the community that not only have taken a massive hit in this time of COVID, but have stepped up in the most incredible ways. Debbie at Staggers still serves her Christmas dinner despite getting shut down, not even COVID related by weather and having insurance issues. And Doug and Renee, of course, have, helped out with the North Grove and cooking meals. We've really just seen this incredible collaboration and outpouring from our whole community. The kindness from every single person in the community who has been so diligent around public health guidelines, so patient with each other. In those early days, just a year ago, when there was police tape up at Graham's Grove and we couldn't walk around Sullivan's Pond and people were really freaked out, we were still patient and we were still kind with each other. And it's such a testament to, I think, who we are. But we're also really innovative. I mean, we solve amazing problems. The Dartmouth General Hospital is a model of innovation across our healthcare system. They're the ones who figure things out, and then the NSHA takes the lesson. They have started to figure out how to offload patients off of ambulances that we've heard about. They have incredible funds through the Dartmouth General Hospital Foundation, which I have been privileged to help work on in terms of gathering resources around looking at health equity and how to best deliver health in a community appropriate way in different communities, particularly African Nova Scotian community. The Dartmouth General Hospital is the third busiest hospital in the province, and in its catchment has lots of historically Black communities, and we know that lots of those communities have poorer health outcomes than the rest of the province, and our hospital is diligently working on that. The Downtown Dartmouth Business Commission, really leads in representing this community of local, smart, young business owners and entrepreneurs who are wanting to be successful and do great things and provide great products on what is essentially our small town main street of Portland Street. And so not only does it nourish our community, but it's also a magnet for folks from everywhere. And then, in our nonprofit sector, there's Meals on Wheels, who delivered hundreds and hundreds of meals, and we were really proud to support that in the early days of the pandemic, with masks and public health information. And we're also sustainable. So if you look at the business community, we have the Tear Shop that just opened, which is fantastic. The Train Yard is really committed to sustainability. Clean Nova Scotia is one of the foremost sustainability nonprofits in Canada, and it's right on Portland Street. And they have clean leadership programs and they deliver efficiency programs right across the province. And we are so lucky that they call Dartmouth home. And I'm so lucky to interact with them as an organization. And, it's funny, when I was thinking about the sustainability piece, I was remembering, and some of you may remember this, being in a parade, walking down sort of the back part of Prince Albert Road there, waving little blue fish, advocating for the daylighting of the Sawmill River. And now look at the Sawmill River. We have this beautiful bridge in Sullivan's Pond, and we have the fish ladder. And, that came from a group of community volunteers waving little blue fish flags led by the Ecology Action Center and others, and of course, planners and political will and all of that. But we are a remarkable community. And together we have accomplished so much. And I've been privileged to work on it. And some of the projects that I've been privileged to work on that I want to continue are the health of our lakes. So when we were talking about environmental sustainability and equity earlier, our lakes, as we know, are the heart of our community. They're also free recreation for lots and lots of folks who might not be able to afford recreation elsewhere. The health of those lakes is vital. And so along with my colleague, Susan LeBlanc from Dartmouth North, we have pushed and pushed and pushed on the Department of Environment, and we will continue to do so to have a real strategic action plan for addressing the lakes. But I think we can confidently say that this issue is not under the rug anymore. We've had all levels of government present. We had a huge event just about a year and a half ago, and we continue to be in dialogue with the Department of Environment. We raised the alarm a couple of years ago when we realized that there was no psychiatric emergency health in Dartmouth. So as I said, the Dartmouth General is the third largest hospital, and yet when folks were showing up there in having mental health emergencies, because of course they go there if that's the nearest ambulance, were triaged and they had to wait to find a room in Halifax. That's still the case, but we now have psychiatric nurses in the Dartmouth General, and Susan, again, my colleague, and I have been proud to play a part in really spurring the government towards that decision. I have been so pleased, as I said, I really see my job as amplifying the voices of people who know way more than me and who are just unbelievably brilliant. And here we have Margaret's House, which everyone knows, that just does incredible work. And so, supporting those folks where we can through my office, Meals on Wheels, the Elizabeth Fry Society on Tulip Street, many people may not know, also on Queen Street now. We treat our incarcerated and folks at risk of incarceration, particularly women in the province, atrociously. And we have jails full of people, 70% of whom are on remand, who might not be convicted of a crime. And we have a lot of young women, almost all of whom have been victimized themselves, who are through a revolving door at Burnside. Folks like Elizabeth Fry Society and Emma Halpern, who's their executive director, help these women change their lives. And I've been really honored to work with them to do that. When COVID happened, I met with the operator of the Doubletree Hotel by the bridge, our big hotel in Dartmouth, and he said, we need help. And so we began to advocate for, a tax break for hotel operators, to say, here's an easy way that the government can do that. We've similarly continued to advocate for a seasonal tax break for seasonal operators to allow them to work year round. So to take that step of trying to support a year-round rural community and help boost the rural economy without taking that business risk. As we spoke about earlier, we've done a lot of work on housing. I'm really proud of the work my caucus has done on housing, the advocating that we have and will continue to do. We spend a lot of time here with the residents and management of the Metro Regional Housing buildings here in Dartmouth South, of which there are a lot, making sure that the residents have a safe and dignified place to live. All of that is aside from the hundreds of folks who come through our office just looking for help to navigate services, and my staff at the front line for sure, and sometimes me, just do incredible work just as a community navigator essentially in our community, and I'm really proud of that. Right now we're trying to navigate childcare. One of our main and largest and most venerable childcare providers, the Dartmouth Daycare, is going to close in May here. The NDP caucus has been at the forefront of advocating for universal childcare. We warned that pre-primary would destabilize the system. It did. You can't just offer childcare to 4-year-olds. You got to offer it to everybody. And so, we need, ECEs need to make a living wage. Our children need to be able to have childcare. And we know now that we are a year into a pandemic that the impact of that pandemic is being felt very differently by different people. And it's really falling on the shoulders of women. People are calling it a she-cession. And, investment in childcare has a massive multiplier effect. It's good economic sense. it's also good social policy. And so we will continue to advocate for that. And in the legislature, I think the thing I'm most proud of in the legislature for this past year is getting us back there. So as House Leader, it has been beyond frustrating to watch the Democratic deficit in this province increase and increase and increase. And I can't even add up the number of hours I have spent trying to get us back in that chamber, and we are there. And we are doing the work of legislating and holding the government to account. As I think Rebecca referenced, I was able to pass a private member's bill into law last year, which is a fairly rare accomplishment in this political environment, creating a bubble zone around reproductive health providers. I'm very proud to have done that. I'm very proud to have amplified the voices of the champions in that field. We advocated for mat leave for counselors and MLAs, and I think our voice was crucial in getting there and thereby hopefully attracting more women to run for politics and to create the kind of change that they want to see. I have amended a number of bills in the legislature, including adding first voice to committees around education. We advocated vociferously. We were the only voice in the legislature advocating for a permanent moratorium on street checks. And up until the day that was announced, the Minister of Justice said that street checks were a valuable policing tool, notwithstanding the fact that the former Chief Justice of Nova Scotia said they were unconstitutional. So we were glad to see that pass, and we were glad to be able to amplify the voices of DPAD, the folks of the Decade for the for the promotion of
people of
African descent, and others who have been fighting that fight for decades, hundreds of years, and to be able to amplify those voices in that chamber. But there is so much more work to do. It feels like we've scratched the iceberg, but we're really making progress, and so that's why I'm running again. I want to represent you, I want to champion you, and I want to help our community and hold it up as a model for the province. So we've heard of a couple of pledges coming in during all of this, familiar names, and so I appreciate that. I'll continue to ask for your support, and before we sign off and maybe have a couple minutes for Q&A, I need to say all the thank yous. And so I want to thank Jesse and Sam and Jordan who have put this on tonight. It's much more profesh than I could ever have accomplished on my own. Of course, the inimitable Juanita Peters, also so much more profesh than I could have done on my own. I'm really, really grateful for your help tonight, Juanita. Emma and Wendy and Kathy, who knew what thespians they were when we asked them to make that fundraising video. Rebecca for your nomination, Kai and Karen for your friendship and help and for your questions tonight. Manuel, who is our current EPC chair, Manuel Moncoyo Adams, and Nancy, who up until recently has been our EPC chair and has done a huge amount of work getting us to this place. The rest of our election planning committee, Kevin Payne, Bev Doman, Susan Forsyth, Michael Brown, Deborah Martinello, Grace Such, and Dennis Thiemann, my electoral district association, all the volunteers I was talking about earlier who just come out of the woodwork. And thank you to all of you for coming. I couldn't appreciate it more. My office is always open, and the last thank yous, of course, go to Bev and Grace, my office staff, without whom I couldn't do so much of the work that I do because they are the kind and patient voices on the phone and on email, and my family, who are watching as though like this is TV. So my husband, Jamie, and my kids, Molly and Anna and Sam, I love you guys. So yeah, come on out. It's almost campaign time. We would love to have you as we work to champion all the things that make this community great. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And remember, if you have any interest in volunteering, we need people with all kinds of different abilities and skill sets. You may not know what you have to offer, but just walk through the door, make a phone call, and we'll find it. If you're in a position to donate, please do so as we prepare for what we think will be a spring election. and we'd love to see you as part of it. Let's make sure that we get this moving. If you pledge, you can do so in the chat. It'll stay open for the next 15 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us.